Hello and welcome to the Empower Her Collective show. I'm your host, Dr. Celia Corbo, entrepreneur, functional health practitioner, and licensed chiropractor. Join us on our guest speaker episode as we dive into stories of remarkable women making a difference and transforming their dreams into reality. Today on the show, we have Breanne Burke. Breanne is a mindset and confidence coach. Her mission is to help women heal their internal struggles through self-development and self-love. She is a certified yoga teacher for both adults and children. Her empathic ability led her to care for others and provide them with the light to see their untapped potential. This is the foundation of her podcast, Becoming with Breanne Burke, focusing on mindset, happiness, and confidence. She is also certified in NLP, EFT, and life and success coaching to further equip her in supporting her clients to receive their ultimate transformation in becoming the most confident version of themselves. Hey, Brie, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. What an intro.
You know what? I had some people be like, oh, why do you read the intro with the person on the show? But I think it's so great to re-listen to your own bio from someone else's voice.
Absolutely. I was listening to that. I was like, I have done all of that. That is true.
Absolutely. And it's amazing what you've accomplished.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to dive in and talk about things here.
Yeah, me too. And I would love to just learn more about you. Tell our viewers a little bit more about how you even got started in this space of success coaching and a little bit more about your journey.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I will try to make this not so long-winded, but we're going to take it back like a handful of years. So, I would say it all kind of started when I was in university. I decided third year university. What was going on in my life at that time was I went to a local university, so I didn't go away to school, and I was very unhappy. I was initially going through to be a teacher. Teaching, as we know, is a fantastic career, but there was a serious disconnect. I just felt like this isn't in alignment with what I want to do, so I switched programs. That still just wasn't cutting it. By third year university, I was like, I had regret that I didn't go away. And I'm from a small town, Niagara Falls. Most people around the globe knows where that is, but it is actually a small town. Once you remove the tourism, like everybody knows each other, very small town vibes. And as even still today, I'm really the only one out of my core friend group that has left in any capacity. So how it all started was I went and did an exchange abroad. I went and studied in Sweden. I didn't know anyone in the country, let alone like the continent. And that started to really like open my eyes naturally to how resilient I was and how capable I was, and also how sheltered I was back home. And something I want to preface before I dive into this is I truly don't think that you need to go traveling to like find yourself.
Mhm.
This is very much a part of my own story and how things unfolded. And I know the glitz and the glam and how this is presented online.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily think that is something that you need to change your actual state. And we can dive into that after this.
Amazing. Yeah.
But so that's where it kind of started. And then upon returning home, I finished my last year of university, didn't even go to my graduation. I booked a plane ticket and I was going to go away for 9 months. So at the time, I had a partner. He was working in Dubai. I went to Dubai, and then we traveled Southeast Asia for 5 months, ended up going to Australia. Long story short, I was supposed to be gone for 9 months, and I came back 2 years later without like coming home once. My parents were just like, Brie, like I need like you need to figure it out. I was like,
Need to
but
start reading.
yeah, but for any of you that do know, when you are traveling on your own, because I definitely had components where I was on my own, the highs are often high and the lows are low because everything is really emphasized when you're on your own. You almost feel like a kid again. For example, I was traveling the coast solo in Australia, and I would rock up to a hostel and not know anybody. And it's like, you want to get in with the group, the cool group, the group that's staying out late, the group that's having fun. And I had no money to my name. I was so unbelievably broke. And it was just such an experience. But there were a number of pivotal moments, I would say, in the last decade of my life that really transitioned and changed and altered the path that I went on. And one of them was when my partner at the time, we had been together for six years,
Mhm.
he ended up getting a job back in San Francisco. And for any of you that know, I am Canadian. And if you want a working visa in Australia, you get 1 year of a visa, unless you do like farm work and get a second year. But we're working in the 1 year time frame. At this point, when he was leaving, it was at about the 10-month mark. And he was a number of years older than me. And I just decided, like, hey, you know what? You go to California, I'm going to hang back. And he was supportive, but he was also just like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you going to do? You want to hang back on the other side of the world solo? And of course, my parents and family and friends were also like, Brie, what are you doing? Like, he's leaving. Why don't you leave? And I'm like, no. So that was like one big thing. And then one thing led to another. I came home and I just ended up having my first, I swear to God, like first and only epiphany I've had to date. Like, I really wish I would have more epiphanies. Like, me, I think I have little minor ones, but this was like an gut wrenching, like, this is meant to be. I woke up one morning, I remember it was the day after St. Patty's Day, and it was the year 2017. So, and just to give you a little bit of a timeline, I'm in my mid 20s. I'm about 26 at this time, I believe. So I come home and I am lost. Your girl is lost. I am so broke. I moved back in with my parents. I don't know what I'm doing. And all my friends are starting to get engaged because, again, preferencing like the small town, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling really disconnected. I'm having constant out of body like feelings. That was the energy. I felt really lost. And then I woke up the day after St. Patty's Day and I was crying, of course, in my childhood bedroom because that's where I was sleeping. And my mom came in, who I'm very close with, and she's like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I need to end my relationship. And she's like, Brie, you're having like a existential crisis. Like, have you guys been having issues? We've never been on a break, nothing like that. And I'm like, no, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want this. And I don't have an explanation. And if I do not do it right now, I'm not going to have the courage to do it. So this is also just one of your first signs within this conversation is to act on those 30 seconds of courage. Okay. That is my intuitional nudge telling me I need to do this. I ended things. So I was already at a low, Celia, as you can imagine. Now I'm at like a more low. I'm just like, let's get deeper. I don't know what I'm doing. And that was a whole growth period in itself because I knew I wanted more. I knew I wanted something different. I didn't know what that looked like. I felt so disconnected, not only from everyone around me, but also in my own life. And I just started to kind of take action because on one hand, like all of my friends were actually quite pumped that I was single. They're like, oh, Brie, you're the only single one of the group. And also you've never been single. Like, what does that look like? And I had no interest in dating anyone other than like understanding myself. So of course, what that looks like is me working in a nightclub and saving up $5,000 cash to put myself through a yoga teaching certification. I'm going to this certification being like, I need something to like flip me on my ass, like figure it out with no intention of teaching yoga, like at all, like whatsoever. And now let me tell you, it was a 2-week intensive. So for a lot of you listening, you're into self-development. A lot of people know this. There's different types of certifications that you can do, but I was at like literally an ashram. Everything was so scheduled. Your meals, I had like bunk buddies. You never had alone time, like communal showers. And 2 weeks doesn't sound like a long time, but it is in that confined area. And of course, I come out of those 2 weeks. And I remember our facilitator was like, you are going to feel weird leaving. Like, I remember pulling out of the parking lot and seeing like my first truck because you haven't seen society in 2 weeks, which is insane. And you're like never on your phone or anything there. Like, we had to have them in baskets and all these things. And I just remember I'm like, well, I'm a different person. Okay, let's go. And that is where I started to really dive into self-development, like from a perspective of like I was aware of what it was. And it really was initially intrigued when I was away and traveling, in the sense that I started to gain a lot of perspective. Again, I started to gain those skills of putting myself out there and building confidence and realizing how capable I was. So upon this season of my life, I then, of course, naturally, I met my partner not long after, who I'm currently with, who is amazing. And that is because I was so in my own lane energy. Like we joke about our dynamic when we initially met. I was just like, listen, you are either jump on the Brie train or it's right now is not the time. And he's like, I'm jumping on the Brie train. And he like rode that for a while. And he's like, you'll like fully come around and be open to things like, and things unfolded, of course, how they have now. We have bought a house together. We just got a puppy. I was showing Celia.
Cute. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but okay. So this is where we're at in 2017. From there, remember, your girl is still like super broke. But because I met my partner, I decided to move from Niagara Falls, where my friends and family were, but there was no opportunity there for me and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I moved to Toronto, where my partner was living, and I worked a ton. I tried a bunch of different stuff, and it's so funny because I'm like 26 going on 27, and I'd like never worked a corporate job or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working these jobs, and I'm just like, what is this shit?
What is my life? It's yeah.
What is my life? But I had a lot of debt to pay off. Like I had a lot of catching up to do. I paid my own way through school. I paid my own way through travels. Like I had a lot of figuring out to do and understanding who I was. And again, when I gained that yoga teaching certification, I had no intentions of teaching, which of course I did end up teaching. And then I got into the space in the community of like really being of service. Now, a few things that I want to point out here is from a very young age, as long as I can remember, I have always been an extremely sensitive, empathetic kid.
Mm-hmm.
Always. But I grew up with two older brothers. I grew up in a space that was extremely supportive of like my dreams and my goals. But I really, for a very long time, until not that long ago, in all honesty, attached my self-worth to my achievements.
Yeah.
So I was always one on student council. I was always like winning sports teams and all of these things. And I've always been a super ambitious person. And now I'm in a place where I'm able to hold that level of ambition, but also not attach my worth to my achievements because I'm able to decipher between the two. I'm able to actually level set on the intention as to why I do things. And that's something that we can further talk about if you wish. But I was in this place where I was like really confused. I was teaching and I was working these corporate jobs and I was I was lost. And my partner's like, oh my God, this chick, like, what was I doing?
Who am I with?
Oh my gosh. He's like older and sorted. Like his life was sorted. And he's just like, you're coming in literally like a wrecking ball, like Miley Cyrus. And I'm like, let me just like fuck everything up. So essentially, that's where we're at. I was teaching, and during lockdown, I was like, I've always had the desire to then serve people on a deeper level and also kind of lean into my natural innate skills, things that interest me, because these feelings of like sensitivity that I always carried. They were always covered with a heavy level of ego, to be honest. Like if people that know me now have seen me unfold in such a way, they're like, Brie, you covered this side up of you. So like I would cry so often behind closed doors where I would always just put on a front because I felt so much shame around my level of sensitivity. I'm like, oh, Brie, like, why can't you just shake this off? Like, why can't this just like roll off your back? Like everybody else, like, why is everything you take so personally? And then I started to learn and lean into things that were like innately true to me, which felt really, really good. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many other women that actually feel this way.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was with the component of me that is naturally ambitious and then having these like passions and desires, they're not just on my heart for no reason. I then started to take the actionable steps to be able to equip me in a way that I could actually support people. That led me to becoming a certified life and success coach, along with different modalities in NLP, neurolinguistic programming. For those of you that are not sure, it's all about rewiring your subconscious mind and EFT and all of those things that were in addition to my yoga teaching. And then with that, I also launched my podcast 3.5 years ago. And that has kind of just been an ever growing journey. And there's been so many highs and lows and, different moments of what do I want to do? Or how do I go against the grain? Or I don't want to do it the way this is being done. And I have so many internal, I don't know, feelings of disconnect and resistance around like social media and how things are being done
Yeah.
now today. I always just have to tune back in, like, how do I want to show up and lead by example in a way that's actually going to make an impact and be of service to other people versus what is on trend versus the status quo versus what everybody else is trying to achieve? Because I think there is a serious problem in direction that our culture is going in regards to social media and everything that's involved in that. But
Mhm.
again, that is something else we could talk about. But that is kind of like my story packaged up into like a really tight timeline. It's wild. And yeah.
It sounds amazing. And you know what? I know this because I follow you. I know you're a Sagittarius, as
Yes.
am I. So I
Oh, are you?
yes, I'm November 28th. So when are you? When's your birthday?
I'm December 16th.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. So I totally understand like that need to travel, explore, and
Yeah.
like by no means do you have to travel to find yourself, but there is some kind of element where you just see, at least for myself, where you see how good you have it at home. Because when you're traveling and you are on your own, you really have to like scramble, be quick on your feet, and you have to be very resourceful. And at home, you're very familiar with the environment. It's not that the about social economic status or anything. It's just about the comforts of being
Mhm.
at home and having things there. Whereas when you're somewhere else, it's not really like that. You have to figure things out. You have to maybe speak another language or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I totally understand. And I feel like that was also part of my journey that I resonated with yours, that the travel aspect and just like trying to see what else is out there or just trying to see like who am I kind of thing. Because when you're diving into a career that you're going to do for the rest of your life, you need to be in love with yourself. You need to love what you're doing because that is going to be the longest relationship that you'll ever have.
Yeah, and I think it just provides you so much perspective
Yeah.
on what is important and what isn't
Yeah.
important, which is so fantastic. So I just remember coming home when I was in my mid 20s and thinking, how was I on a budget of $20 a day? I rarely wore shoes,
Yep.
and I am now back home doing all of these things, checking all of these boxes, and I was happier
Yeah.
doing what I was doing. Now,
Yeah.
of course, there's a sense of freedom and lack of responsibility that makes it a little bit easier, but I also wasn't, excuse me, I wasn't hyper focused on my future. I found I was very present,
Mhm.
but ultimately, the biggest thing that I took away was the need for resourcefulness and how that's like, if that's not a skill you have right now, it is something that you should truly work on mastering,
Yeah.
and also just perspective of other ways of life, other cultures, other opinions. It's good to be challenged. It's good to open your horizon and like broaden your views and expanding your comfort zone like 1% each day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, as an entrepreneur or just as a human being, you can't stay stagnant because the world will keep evolving. Things will keep going. And if you're just going to stay in your little zone of comfort, I like the way I really look up to Michael Singer as one of my spiritual teachers, and he talks about your ego as being in a cage or keeping you in a cage. And if you're just going to stay in the confines of that cage, it's just it's not going to allow you to grow and be the best version of yourself because you're comfortable. You have to be exposed to all these beautiful things in the world, but that also causes challenge to be brought up within you and to be adaptable.
Yeah, I agree. And change is literally like the one constant in our life. Like,
Yes.
no matter what you're feeling, the emotion that's arise, the situation, the circumstance that you're going through, it's going to change. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. It might feel like it matters, but it's constant. And I just think in order to have some form of detachment, which is very much attached to your level of calm and peace and joy, is really accepting your reality for what it is versus what you think it should be.
Hmm.
Allowing yourself to have that sense of detachment and then realizing the control in which you actually have is over your response,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
instead people are trying to control so much of what's around them versus themselves. And I think people are getting really lost in that narrative and in that habit where it's throwing them off track. And then it's this cyclical cycle of people never feeling fulfilled and they don't understand why.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I feel like with our society, there's a lot of really wonderful things that come from the way that we live and social media and all that. But there's a lot of things that make us not look internally at ourselves and the choices that we make and the things that we're presented with because we're so distracted by what else is out there that we just kind of, okay, we brush it off and we just go to the next thing, that next shiny object, right?
And I think something that I have spoken about, I would say more frequently in the last like 6 months, is because I've done a good amount of research in understanding the science backing. And as I kind of like alluded to when I was explaining my story in regards to like the direction in which social media is going. And obviously we're like of the millennial demographic. And I know the Gen Z demographic is different, but we very much have businesses online. And in one way, it's awesome. It connects you, it gives you exposure. It also allows you to just consume things that feel really, really good. But as you said, Celia, it's like people are distracted. They're
Yeah.
distracted and then they're looking for the quick fix. And that quick fix is literally leaning into the like the crutch, the excuse, the identity of, I don't know, the diagnosis or the title or the term. It's like, well, I have ADHD, so this is why I'm like this.
You blame
This has happened in my life, so this is why I'm like this. And it's like something that I talk about and teach and coach on is yes, understanding your past is really important when you are in a place to be able to digest it
Mhm.
and comprehend it and learn from it, understanding your triggers, understanding your patterns, and yes, how your environment and your parents and how all of that has contributed to make you who you are today, your identity, your beliefs, your limiting beliefs for that matter, right? And you get to work through that, let that go and rewire. But what I just said was let go.
Yeah.
Let go. It's not to keep you stagnant. It's not to keep you labeled. It's all about change and progressing forward. And what people are doing now is comparing, comparing, comparing. And then everyone and their mom are having all of these like self identity crisis because we as human beings, we're not biologically set up through evolution to be able to consume so much content. Like
No.
the thing is, yes, the world has changed, but there's always been things going on. We
Yeah.
just didn't know. And that is why there is some serious truth behind the whole concept that ignorance is bliss, because you don't know.
Yeah.
More isn't always better. And
Mhm.
so it's also about really using your discernment in your boundaries to be able to limit what is not serving you at certain times in your life, right? It's like you
Yeah.
need to get really real with where you're spending your time, money, and energy instead of like placing blame on this label and that label in this environment in this person. It's like, no, Billy, where are you spending your time every single day? Like, what are you consuming? What are you doing? And it's oftentimes back to the basics that people just don't want to do.
Oh my God, I know. I see it every day in my clinic.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell them I'm like, okay, 50% of your healing journey is going to be on my table with me adjusting you and helping you. But the other 50% is literally going back to basics, eating healthy, moving your body, getting good sleep, going out with your friends. And I ask all these questions on my intake form, but it's almost like no one wants to do it or they need a huge push in that direction. And I can't push you because then you're going to leave. And that's fine with me if you do. But, you have to find that push within yourself, right? Because
Right.
you're the only one that can really make yourself move forward.
Absolutely. You have
Yeah.
to hold yourself accountable to a degree. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it oftentimes people coming to a place where they're brought into their knees a little bit, where it's like they have no other choice but to change things. And don't get me wrong, I think there is a time and a place for additional support,
Yeah.
like depending on where you're at. But it's not just going to the quick fix. If you truly want to change, you need to stop trying to open old doors. It's going to get
Yes.
everything is habitual. Absolutely everything. The way you dry off coming out of a shower, like with your towel, to give it like the most mundane, simplistic example is a habit. is a habit. I know which direction I go. I start up here and then I work my way down to my legs. Like everything is a habit. So depending on how deeply embedded that habit is how much work it's going to require to change that habit.
Yeah. I laughed so hard at that example because I barely towel off when I get out of the shower, and my husband's always like, it's like a puddle in the bathroom. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's not gonna.
You put a shirt on and you're like, shirt's soaked, and you're like, no, I just couldn't take a second to dry myself off.
I'm gonna towel my back. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. That's funny.
So I love that example because I can definitely relate, and I know my husband would be like nodding his head in agreement with that.
Yeah.
It's true. Your habits, again, they're habits. You can change them, but when you literally are faced with no other choice, it's almost like that big push that you need to just change your lifestyle if you want to have that good quality of life. And have you ever been in that position? Because I definitely know I have, where you are trying to find the quick fix, or you are trying to find some kind of self-actualization in this really dark or different transitional period in your life, and it didn't go the way you wanted it to, or you had to pivot and find some other way.
Oh my gosh. I've had multiple of those. One not that long ago. Really not that long ago. And I still get like little whiplash is not the right word. Little like reflecting moments of that. I started to become like really, really anxious. Like to me, it was out of nowhere. I started to have like some health stuff come up. And this was actually about a year and a half ago, a health stuff come up. And I was like really taken back by it. I was just like, I'm a super healthy person. Like, what is this? And my body was just doing things that it kind of took me off guard. And that kind of put me into overdrive, like a level of stress that like I have not experienced before, that led to panic attacks, that led to really, really bad levels of anxiety that I just never felt. And I got to be honest, I never thought I would be someone to deal with that. Also, only in the sense of the knowledge that I have in the lifestyle that I live. And I think I just got caught up in leaning into more of my like ambitious path versus being able to balance and create a sense of calm while going hand in hand with that. And that's what I was saying earlier, where I'm able to balance and I understand the difference. But that led me to so many things, Celia. I was like, oh, I just need to do, I was doing everything. I was doing the chiropractor. I was doing acupuncture. I was taking so many supplements with my naturopath. I ordered mushrooms from Amsterdam. Like, so I don't know. They're like I don't know if you can talk about that on here. They're like microdosing. I wasn't like getting high. Trust me. I was like so uncomfortable in my body. I was like, this is going to help. I have no idea why I thought that. I ordered, but it was so funny because the wire transfer wasn't going through and I had to get my partner to, he's like, Bree, what the hell? You got to ride this out. So do this. I was like, these are going to help me how I feel. It's going to change everything. Oh, I did so many things, but again, it was like so balls to the wall. Yeah. It was just so extreme. Like and no matter what, that wasn't going to get me to where I actually needed to do a lot less, a lot less. And then I started to understand, like, why do I feel so uncomfortable, like not having a jam-packed calendar? Why do I feel so uncomfortable not doing much? Like there, on one hand, it feels so good to have like fulfillment and purpose, and human beings need that. But I think so many people are actually addicted to stress. And like we think of stress, I feel like stress is very much like kind of an older person term, especially for like the younger group. They're like stress, like my dad's stressed, but stress, like that intensity, that adrenaline rush, that feeling like you almost just chugged a coffee and you're just like, I got to get so many things done and I got to check so many things off. And I didn't even know I was stressed. That was the thing. Like I didn't know until I was brought to a place where I felt like I had no choice, but like had to literally release control of absolutely everything. Like I was just trying to get through the day at one point, and that was for a couple of months. It wasn't like a few days or a few weeks. Like it was like a number of months. And I do feel like I'm kind of not forever different, but I am. Like I live a very different lifestyle now. Like I won't stay up till 3 a.m. and then catch a flight and go to a networking event, where before I would do that. I was a girl that would do it all. I was the yes girl. I would say yes to everything. I was the life of the party. And then I went through a whole feeling of feeling like, oh my gosh, people perceive me differently because now I have such intense boundaries. Like I've always been into self-development and I've been known for that, but it takes a lot to like truly change your identity in and out. But let me tell you what I've learned from this. It is, I am much more a present future person based versus a past present person, like based person.
Yeah.
And if so many people live so much in the past, and this again ties into that whole concept that we were talking about in regards to habits and
Mhm.
everything being habitual. Every day end up looking the same. And have you ever talked about like neural pathways and stuff on here?
Not yet. No.
No? Okay. I'm going to quickly touch on it
Do
because
it.
it just ties into what I'm explaining. So ultimately under the NLP umbrella, neuro linguistic programming, you have to understand that like our subconscious pretty much runs our show. Like we're only aware of like 10% of our conscious mind. So our subconscious is like, you can think of it like a filing cabinet. It literally houses every single memory, belief, experience, things that you don't even consciously remember. So
Mhm.
think every thought and limiting belief, for example, like I'm not worthy of success. Okay. Every time you have thought that, I want you to think of like a linked chain. That is a neural pathway. So that is like a thought strand in your subconscious mind. And the more you think it, the stronger it gets. And so understand fear perpetuates fear. So when I was in that state, right, I was scared of how I was feeling and I was confused and I was like really dependent on something outside of me to fix how I was feeling. So
Yeah.
that was literally strengthening that thought, like that limiting belief, that neural pathway. So when you are living in the past and everything is so habitual, your subconscious mind also, its only job is to keep you safe. Like it does not care if you're happy. That goes very hand in hand with that common saying. It's like your mind will keep you in a familiar hell versus an unfamiliar heaven because
Yeah.
it doesn't care about your happiness.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're having all these physical symptoms, you're having these terrible thoughts, and people are thinking they're going crazy or I need this, I need that. And it's like, no, it's just been a habit of your lifestyle. It's a byproduct of what has been building over time until you reach a place where you can no longer function like that. And I think that is where people are very much living in the past, right?
Yeah.
And that is contributing to who they are today. So, although it wasn't an enjoyable experience, like at all, and I was really caught off guard when it all happened, and as was my partner. And of course, we grew from it and it made us closer as a team and everything. And it's made me a better coach. I understand people on another level, right? On a much deeper level, because I wasn't able necessarily to resonate to some circumstances. It has made me a much more present person. And if anytime I get caught up in like the what ifs, like what if this happens? What if this happens? Like this happened in the past, I switch it and turn it to the future, like exciting, what I want things to unfold. And that is kind of the goal of how we want to be thinking. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes. If that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. No, there's even a quote that I love because I love the familiar hell or unfamiliar heaven. But when I think, what if, there was for a period of time, and I don't know if the universe was showing me this because those were a lot of thoughts going through my head, but it says, fear is what if, and faith is even if.
Yeah.
I kid you not, Brie, I was seeing that exact message like almost every two posts, it was showing up. And I had to change my thought pattern because, again, like you mentioned, your brain just wants to keep you safe, and it naturally, based off evolution, will think about the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So you're not going to think about like, ooh, but what if I make $1 million this year? You're not thinking like that. You're like, ooh, but what if I go broke?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though
Mm-hmm.
things are on the right trajectory. And it's definitely necessary from an evolutionary standpoint from when we were, hunters and gatherers. But now it almost serves as a dispurpose, you could say, because we have to think a little bit more optimistically and positively, but we have to do a lot of rewiring in our brain in order to do that. And it takes a lot of guidance. That's why having coaches like you is fantastic because you can help with that neural programming. So it doesn't have to be so daunting and scary, and then you just give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I was literally on a call with an old mentor of mine yesterday. We were just like catching up and things like that. And one thing she said was as you get older, you have to work at being happy, which I
Yes.
just thought was so profound because no one ever says that. Like you just think like everything should just you have to just be happy. And if you're not, there's something wrong with you. Life is really hard and life is unfair. People are dealt very different decks of cards, and again, back to what I was saying, the sooner you accept your reality for what it is versus kind of like what you think it should be, right? You're comparing your life like, well, why wasn't I born into the Kardashian family? Like, right? You can fixate on that. And as you were like alluding to, like we are very hardwired for the negative. We were biologically created that way in order to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And also with the speed of technology and just being in the golden era of information and just everything being so accessible, you got to look at your life like it's a damn algorithm. Like the more you look at it, the more it's going to pop up. The more you see, like you look at one natural disaster on Instagram. Yeah, it's good to be informed, but next thing you know, your entire feed for you page is about natural disasters. And the more you think about that, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. And then you're super hyper fixated on all that is wrong, all that could happen. So it's really interesting. Think about how easy it is to tap into the emotions of anger and
Mhm.
fear and
Mhm.
guilt and shame. It's so easy. You could probably just sit here and think of something like a memory, and you can instantly get your body and your mind into that state.
Yeah.
But that is just a pure example of if it's that easy to tap into that, it can also be like that to tap into gratitude and joy. And although we need polarity, like we need both ends of the spectrum in regards to like emotions, like we're not meant to be happy all the time. But if you are someone that's like listening to this and thinking, man, I'm like angry almost every day, and it's like because that's become a habit.
Yeah.
That's become a habit, and you are capable of breaking that. You truly are. If you were able to make that a habit, you can make tapping into gratitude a habit. It just requires you to work at it.
Yeah, you can't really short circuit to anger. You have to really think it through to gratitude or to a positive
Mhm.
emotion, which takes more effort. And it's
Yeah.
about you being willing to make that effort.
Yeah. And I also, there's another part to this that like people love to stay stuck. They don't say
Yeah.
they do. We love rotting in like the negative emotion. We love being upset. We love talking about it. I'm talking to you about it. I'm talking to my mom about it. I'm talking to my friends. I'm talking to my partner about it. Like we love it. The more we fuel it, the stronger it becomes, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. It becomes a habit. You can become fixated. Next thing you know, a year's gone by and you're still talking about your damn ex that like left you at a bar and you haven't talked to him since. And you're fixated on this story. And now this story has become like your purpose. And that's like all you're living out. And now that's your projection of how all men are and why you can't date and all of it. It's like such a ripple effect.
Yeah, it definitely is like a huge spiral. It starts with one event that you just dwell on, and then before you know it, it's reaching into other areas of your life that you didn't even know were touchable. That
Exactly.
one event, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, how did you, because I want to dive into a little bit more entrepreneur side, and then we can also talk about your journey and what you do, but how did you take this into your career? Because, being an entrepreneur, it's kind of scary. I think everyone has this very like glamorized version of what being an entrepreneur is that like I'm my own boss, I make my own hours, which is something I definitely loved and enticed me, but you really have to work at it. You have to kind of grind day in, day out. Like there's a hustle behind it. So how did you know that you wanted to take this and make this your life's work?
Great question. So I feel as though even like dating myself, I'm 32 now. But when like I was in university, like the concept and teachings of entrepreneurship were like pretty far and few between, where I feel like now it's very different. It's very encouraged that you can start your own thing. And that's amazing. Now it's like everybody wants to do that,
Yeah.
which is really great. And it creates jobs and a creativity outlet and all of that. But when I initially kind of fell into doing what I was doing, I knew more so that I wanted to make an impact and create something of my own. I feel like I started my business like before I realized it was like an entrepreneurial like path.
Yeah.
Where some people are like, no, I want to be an entrepreneur. They have several businesses, or it's like, no, I know I want to start my own business. So I kind of fell into it that way,
Mhm.
that it was something that I was good at. I loved it. Was like what it felt like the only time that I felt truly fulfilled with what I was doing. I also felt like very understood when I was speaking to people like yourself. Like clearly we have a lot in common. Like our
Yeah.
conversations are like very enjoyable. Where sometimes I'm talking to people and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like either this is going way over my head or vice versa. Like we just don't resonate. Like they think I'm goofy and like crazy. I don't know. And that's okay.
Too, don't you worry.
Yeah, so it's just like that's okay. And so that's how I kind of like fell into it.
Mhm.
And then in regards to kind of how it's unfolded, again, like I was working for a long time, like corporate. I worked at a marketing agency. And now what I've done is I've really, again, tying into like kind of my ambitious side, like I have really put myself out there, like while being scared, while being very well, like underqualified. I have really put myself in so many rooms that people are very successful, way more successful than me, way smarter than I am. And that is how I've built kind of the lifestyle and the career and things that I'm doing now has been in results of that. That's like been the biggest thing. And it's all been slow. I don't even want to say milestones, more so like building blocks that
Mhm.
has kind of allowed me to be in the role that I am today, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you know what though? Being the dumbest person or the poorest person in the room is what I actually love.
Oh, it's the best because you're like
Yeah.
a sponge. You're just like blown away by everything.
Everything that
Yeah.
you did, because
Yeah.
I do not want to spend so much time making the same mistakes. Or
Yeah.
if I do make the mistakes, I'll have a faster time rebounding from them. Or
Exactly.
my own way.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's honestly that's amazing because yeah, being in that journey of doing something that there is no safety net, there is no sick days, there is no vacation days, there's no security. It's just you doing what you absolutely love. Some people find it so inspiring, like myself, and then some people are like, why would you do that? Like, why would you leave a marketing agency where you have a cushy like 9 to 5, you get a salary, you get all the benefits? Like, why? But at the end of the day, it's just because there's something bigger beyond what you're doing in that agency, and you just have to spread a bigger message.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like I do have this other role. I'm under an NDA and I can't like talk much about it, but it is very much like where I'm in the room with like top leaders all of the time. So I know I am not like a business coach.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of different business coaches and speaking into entrepreneurship, they have different perspectives on this. Some are like, go balls to the wall. Like, if you're passionate enough, literally quit everything and like
Yeah.
go for it. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I have not been like that
Yeah.
because I went through the experience of coming back from traveling and being like 40 grand in debt and like owing a lot of money and having to work several jobs, like missing out on long weekends in the summer because I was working. Like there were so many things. Like I've been through that.
Mhm.
So I've very much gone down the path where this is aligned with this. And each job like was more in alignment with who I am. And then I wanted to make a switch where I would be in a room full of people that would be extremely supportive of what I'm doing. It's under the self-development realm and all of these things. So now I kind of have my hands also in different pots,
Yeah.
like inclusive of my coaching, like it goes hand in hand, but that are very supportive for like my entrepreneurial like kind of dream. Like I do very much make my own hours. Clearly, it's like the middle of the day on a Wednesday, and like my schedule is absurd
Yeah.
and all of these things. So I am someone that also am down for a calm nervous system. I
Mhm.
don't hate on the hustle and grind culture. Like I know that's, I don't
Yeah.
know, been canceled or whatever. I think there's a time and a place. Like if you really want to go after your dreams, like you can't just expect things to just fall into your lap.
Yeah.
And I really leaned into that, but every decision I made kind of got me to where I am now, where I'm able to take a step back. I'm able to simplify things and I'm able to create a lifestyle that helps me along the way. And through that, it wasn't always calm, clearly, because of how everything unfolded. But I have reached a place where I am a big supporter of like doing the route a little bit that helps your nervous system stay calm. So if you are, example, going to quit whatever you're doing to chase your dreams, like that is awesome. But if it's going to make you spiral and put you in so much debt, which then takes away from you actually being creative and going after your passion, I think there is a point where it's like, no, I work on this on Sundays.
Yeah.
And if you're working on your dreams on Sundays, that's pretty freaking awesome, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my biggest truths that I just realized a little while ago was there's no such thing as like a work-life balance, because there is a time where you have to work and there's a time when you have to live, and it's never going to be always on the same plane,
No,
especially when you are doing your own business, right? And
right.
again, it's another one of those myths that I think a lot of people resonate with when they're going into entrepreneurship. It's never going to be like always even balanced on both sides of the scale. You're going to have sometimes where you're going to have to work a lot more, or sometimes when you get to live a lot more, like you said, where
Mhm.
you didn't get to enjoy long weekends, you didn't get to go out with your family, but now you get to make your own schedule. You get to do all of the wonderful things because you had to make that shift and you made it work. What
Yeah.
are some realizations that you came to the realization of, for lack of a better word, recently, or something along your journey where you're like, yeah, this isn't what it's all chalked out to be?
Like, are you referring to like maybe the glamorized piece of like what is
Yeah,
perceived by other people?
yeah, that, or even like through your own journey where you're like, oh, I thought it was going to be this way, but it's not, and it's actually a completely different journey that I've been on to get to where I am today.
Um, I thought it was gonna be easier.
Yeah, just drop the mic, walk away. Yeah, definitely.
Thought it was gonna be easier, and wasn't anticipating having like a mental breakdown
Yeah,
and that, and that's all fine and dandy. Another like okay, also from like a straight like business hat perspective. For example, I could be the best podcaster, coach, speaker, all of the things maybe that I am working towards or working on or would like to look forward to in my near future. But if I can't market myself or sell, it doesn't matter. Or you could be amazing at marketing and sell yourself and overpromise and then you underdeliver, which is almost, well, I would say worse.
yeah,
Um, but it's like also understanding that. Another thing that goes along with that, and it took me a long time, is because I've worked with a couple business coaches and I got a lot out of them. Like a lot out of them. I just mean like I got a lot from it. There was a really high ROI. I'm very happy with the decisions that I've made in
yeah,
this. Like I always felt good investing in myself. And I just learned that now it's so funny. I would say honestly in the last like 10 months, like I am my strategy. Like I know a bunch of strategies, like, but I am my strategy. I know when I am emotionally off, I'm energetically off, things are going to feel off. And I think there is a pillar that you need to do the work. You need to be disciplined. You need to want it enough to take the action. And you can't rely on motivation because motivation is gonna come
yeah,
in and out of your life. You really need to, yeah, you need to truly learn the art of discipline.
yeah,
But on the other hand, is you are your own strategy. The way you're going to get where you want to go is by being yourself. And that's why I think so many people struggle
mhm,
in the online space with their own business and with their personal brand because they're not being themselves.
yeah,
And I even had my partner kind of call me out on this to a degree. Like he has
mhm,
a few times. He's just like, and on not so much on my podcast, but on social media, he's just like, Brie, like your content's so awesome. And yes, you're yourself, but like you're actually way more goofy, like in
yeah,
person. And like that doesn't translate online. And of course, the first few times he said this, it like hurt my feelings. I'm like, bitch, how will you create something online? Like you don't, the last time you posted was like 5 years ago. Like, how dare you?
stay for you.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? But like now I feel like I understand what he's saying. Like I'm just like I was following these strategies that were taught to me and I'm like no, like that's not me. That's not like, that doesn't resonate. That doesn't land. I can feel when it doesn't feel like myself. And
Hmm.
so that's something. Those are some, like, I hope, tangible takeaways that I've definitely learned along the way.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that one because there's a lot of there's a lot of influencers, I guess, or other accounts that I look to for inspiration. And although it's what I like to see, it's just not who I am. And
Yeah.
very much like yourself, I am very goofy. I am very quirky. I say the most weird things sometimes. And even my husband's like, you don't really show that. He said, like, I think your partner and my husband must know each other in some way because he said the same thing to me. He's like, yeah, like it's good content, but like that's not you. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
but the more you put out into the world, the more practice you have. So you
Exactly.
can change it and develop it and then grow your character online and grow your authenticity as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so it's a little bit of both. And you
Yeah.
also really only want to be taking another advice, piece of advice that I would give is like truly only take advice from people that are like living the life that you want to
Yeah.
live. Cause like, let me tell you, when I first started my I would say my business, yeah, and I was like promoting my own one-on-one coaching or my podcast, and I wrote like a long description like explaining things, and I used to love it. And I enjoy writing a lot. I remember my uncle at like a Christmas party was just like, "Hey, I just want to like give you some feedback." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." And he's just like, "Yeah, like people don't enjoy reading like your captions." And I'm like, well, I appreciate, I just remember I was so proud of myself. I was
Yeah.
at a family dinner table and I was like, well, I really appreciate your feedback, but I got to be honest, my demographic is not a 65-year-old white man.
Yeah. That's
So, like, I get it. I hear you. You don't have to read them,
yeah.
but that's okay. So that's just also a little bit of advice. Like, truly only take feedback from people that are doing what it is that you want to do. But of
Yeah.
course, like your partner, similar to mine, like he was just saying, like, Brie, you're just like not as serious as you come
Yeah.
off online. Like you're a lot more playful than that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, it's a work in progress. Like it is hard to just show up as yourself. I find it way easier. Like I am like I feel like to my core 110% myself on my podcast.
Yeah.
But social media, like it's difficult not to make it a bit more curated.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because there's so much to it. There's the visual, there's the audio, there's
Yeah.
like so much more than just the podcast. And I feel like even on my podcast, I can be so much more open because people are there to learn about me. It's not just like a dopamine hit when they see,
Right. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
absolutely. Well, Bree, honestly, I feel like I can talk to you for hours. We have to go on a hike or something. Like we need to get together and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah, we will.
so been so much fun talking to you. Where can we find you on social media or in the virtual world?
Yes, absolutely. Pretty much everything is my first and last name, Breanne Burke, on Instagram. That's like my main platform. My podcast is called Becoming with Breanne Burke. I would say if you liked the tone and vibe of this conversation, that's what you can anticipate over there. And I currently, right now, do have one spot open for one on one coaching. If you're looking to really learn the ins and outs in building unshakable confidence, that would be something for you. And then I do have a signature course if you're looking at something a little bit more passive to do on your own time. It's called Confident Mindset Accelerator. It takes about 10 weeks to complete. And that's pretty much it for me.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you do, your journey. It's been so refreshing talking to you. And for everyone listening, don't forget to like and subscribe, add some comments if you really loved the episode, and we'll see you at the next one.